Baki Hanma shouted at Pickle and said, "Just eat the T-Rex meat, you big dummy." I could hear him from the seats in the stadium. He said, "Pick it up," and Pickle said no, and I said, "You need to do whatever he says because I'm not letting you eat me. This isn't a good idea, Pickle, just eat your meat, come on, do it, big guy." And he kicked it away and he said, "I can't do it, you look like a great giant demon in my eyes and I must kill you." And I said, "You're making a big mistake, Pickle." And he said, "It's my choice to make." And I said, "Very well then," and I got ready and Pickle transformed and I said, "So it's like that, huh?" And he said, "Yes it is, I'm sorry Mr. Hanma, but I have to do this, I need to know something." And I said, "Okay caveman," and then they rung the bell and then Pickle lunged at me and my wife got worried about me and she said, "Oh, dodge him," and then I punched Pickle in the head and his neck broke for the first time in his life and he fell down screaming and then I broke all his limbs and I said, "Okay, you're done," and then I washed off his meat and I fed him. I said, "Eat it, you're done," and he said, "Okay, I will eat it," and I said, "Good, your bones should heal quickly." And the referee checked Pickle and all his limbs were broken very badly and he said, "The fighter Pickle is unable to continue," and even with a meal I made sure his bones would be able to heal today, so I made sure Pickle couldn't continue our fight. And I said, "Sorry Pickle, usually hitting someone that hard in the head gives them brain damage and paralyzes them for life, but not people like Pickle, he's not an ordinary human," so I knew he would heal fast. And then I watched Jack Hanma and Baka's fights and I spoke to Baki Hanma and he said, "Thanks for not killing Pickle, little brother, I know he's a big dummy but he's special and he means well." And I asked who taught him English and Baki said I did and I said, "Interesting, I was under the impression that your father hated Americans," and Baki said, "If that were true he would have killed your mom." And I said, "Yes, you're right, but he was always racist against them. I do know that he didn't respect them. Hell, I believe Dad didn't respect anyone really. You guys remember him, what he was like." And I said, "It's a good thing I found a way to cure your mother." And Jack Hanma said, "Thanks man for helping Mom, I'm glad someone saved her." And I said, "I just used my medical background, I trained by the best doctor. After all, I trained with Kureha Shinogi and he taught me everything he knew." And then Kureha Shinogi said, "Shouldn't have killed your father, though we are supposed to do no harm." And I said, "It was to protect innocent people, Kureha, I had no choice." And he said, "I know, that's why I decided to continue training you after that, and it's the only reason, plus there was many witnesses that explained everything and vouched for you on your behalf." And I said, "Thanks by the way." And he said, "That was an interesting technique you used on Doppo Orochi, you used medical techniques combined with your technique, it was interesting to say the least." And I said, "Thanks, I learned from the best, I hope it was good enough." And he said, "Oh, it was impressive to say the least, keep it up kid, and please try not to kill anyone else on purpose." And I said, "I'm doing my best," and I smiled and laughed awkwardly. And then I fought the other fighters, even Biscuit Oliva, and they were easy to beat. Either I beat them at their own game or I knocked them out quickly. And Biscuit Oliva flexed a bit, making himself very big to fight me, and I even cured his wife. And I said, "So how's your wife, Biscuit Oliva?" And he said, "She's doing great now kid, thanks to you, she gorgeous again. Good thing you figured out a long time ago that when a human trains with a Hanma they get stronger, but that cure all of yours did the trick long before that." And I said, "You mean my peak health serum?" And he said, "Hell yes, thanks a bunch kiddo, and you helped me with my flexing and flexibility. Now I don't have to worry about losing concentration on my muscles, it just happens automatically thanks to your serums and everything." And I said, "If you're saying thank you, you're welcome, Biscuit Oliva." And he said, "Now I would like to continue this fight." And then I said, "Sorry Biscuit Oliva, but I'm ending this fight," and I knocked him out very fast. And then came Jack Hanma in the next match, and this time it was a real fight because my brothers always trained to catch up with me, but I trained very hard for everything. And even though Jack Hanma knows how to fight, he didn't learn everything about how to fight, but I did, so I had some fun with him, and thanks to me being invincible I let him slam me around everywhere. And Grace McKenna got worried, my wife Grace McKenna got worried, and Baki said, "Relax, my brother is not even taking him seriously." And she said, "But he's actually hurting him." And Baki said, "Barely, that's an old injury from our father that Jack is targeting." And she said, "But why is he doing that? Is he trying to injure him?"